Welcome to the Local Marketing Source Weekly Update, brought to you by localmarketingsource.com. This update is taken from the Local Marketing Source Professional Development Program for local marketers.
This week's Local Marketing Update is brought to you by Scott Gallagher. Scott is the co-founder of Local Marketing Source and has become the recognized expert in providing online marketing services to local businesses. Follow Scott on Twitter @ScottGallagher5 and on Facebook.com/ScottPGallagher.
Hey, well, good afternoon, everyone. Scott Gallagher here with Local Marketing Source, bringing you our weekly local marketing industry update. Now, next week's LMS member faculty call is going to be September 25th at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, this week we've got a relatively short week. There wasn't a lot that has happened in the update world for local marketing, but surely we're going to share some of our opinions on that and the implications of that. But we've got some good tips to cover as well, and hopefully we get into some good questions at the end of the call. Now, for this week's update, there's a nice study that's come out and some top SEO local myths that we're going to take a look at and debunk some of those and some theory behind that. And another study that comes out. Now, this is a controversial study to everything that we've talked about at Local Marketing Source. This study indicates that there is no ranking power for Google+, but we're going to share our opinions and thoughts on that study and exactly the reason why social aspects are a must for ranking and businesses and conversion. Now, for a local business tip this week, I'm going back to customer segmentation. We're going to talk a little bit more about customer segmentation and why it's important that all small businesses understand their customer segments and exactly which groups they go into and create the appropriate content for that. So that leads into our local internet marketing agency tip of the week, and we're going to take those segments to create customer profiles and profile traits that are going to help you to create content on a regular basis. Now, weekly update this week, local SEO myths. Well, there's a lot of myths centered around local SEO. We've really only begun to understand, well, local SEO has only been around for 4 years. Right from the get-go, there was a lot of confusion. If you remember back in 2009, SEO was all about building links. Local came out. We never had static pages. They were just search results. We couldn't fire links to the results that we wanted to show. Ultimately, Google made those decisions. We understood citations, reviews, and we've got 3 pillars of local SEO, and one of those pillars is profiles, another one is citations, and a third being reviews. Well, along those lines of recognizing that really at the end of the day it's the same thing as acquiring links. We're just kind of looking at it and utilizing different terminology. The fact of the matter is you're creating marketing content and exposing it out on the internet. A citation is a reference to the business. So you take the content, a reference to the business, they get recognized for that piece of content. Well, when we started to debunk this, a lot of myths started to come out. Do we fire links to these profile pages? Do we still fire links? Well, what about Google+? What does Google+ have to do with local businesses? Are we trying to rank that? Do we need a website to rank? These are all different myths that we could talk about with local SEO. The idea of a website, well, no, you don't need a website to rank. But have a hard time doing it because your website is your greatest citation. So, looking at local SEO myths, I always got to take a step back and I ask myself 3 questions, whether it's a strategy that's viable for a business or not viable for a business. And these are the 3 questions that you guys should be continually asking yourselves as well, whether you're working with your clients or your local business. And number 1, if you're a marketing agency, Ask yourself the question, is this strategy, is it going to add value? Is it going to benefit the end user, the customer or the prospect? So if you're taking an article and you're throwing it on an e-zine somewhere in cyberland, is that really going to help them? Probably not. So article marketing is not the greatest strategy. Question number 2. Is it good for the business? Is it going to be able to help that business? And if you can't answer yes to both of those, there's no point in asking the third question, but that would be, does it support the marketer? Does it also benefit the marketer? So if you can answer yes to all 3 questions, your strategy is probably a good one. And will help you debunk some of these myths that you may come across with local SEO. Another one is the fact of all the data that Google shows. Google's got different facets of their business, and they don't all tend to work well together. You know, Google's in a lot of different types of businesses. They started in the search business, but they're also in the business of trying to extend people's lives. They're also in the business of trying to bring habitat to the moon. They're also in the business of self-driving cars, or free email service, or web browser, or operating system. They're also in hardware business. These are just a few of the businesses that Google actually operates in that are off the top of my head. With all these different online properties that we've got, from everything from YouTube to formerly Google Places to Google Plus, the back-end dashboard, some of the public profiles that you can get up there, the different, even some of the hosting services, music services. These are all different areas that you can have citations and have your business. Extremely important to have congruency among Google. Understand that. Of course you want consistency of your NAP across the internet, but you've got to have congruency across Google with everything, with your description, categories, company name, all of that wonderful stuff. Interesting. I'm sitting in front of a green screen right now drinking a cup of coffee that's in a green cup. Wonder if I can put a hole through me. We'll see. So I was going to tell you about a study that really shows that there's no clear evidence that Google Plus drives rankings. This is published on Search Engine Land, a very prominent website, and I wanted to talk about this. So when you start to break down and understand the study, going back to statistics class, statistical analysis, there was a terminology, a term that we would use called margin of error. And the margin of error would increase. But another term that we would utilize was called sample size. And so if you wanted to go and you created a hypothesis about a certain population, whether it's, let's say it's a population of a high school of 5,000 students, or the population of the entire country or a specific state. You know, with 300 million people in the United States, you're not going to poll everybody. So you'd go out and get a sample size. And the larger the sample size is, the smaller margin of error you get. And so based on the size of the population and the diversity of the data that you're looking for, you could utilize a mathematical equation to determine the optimal sample size. Well, there's a few things I know about sample sizes. Number one, I know that with a population of 300 million in the United States, you only need a sample size of 1,100 to get a statistical margin of error plus or minus 3% or less. We're not really looking to squeeze out a margin of error better than 3%. Because at that point in time, if we took a sample size of 10,000, the margin of error just decreases almost insignificantly. So 300 million, 1,100 people. Well, if you have a population of 50, your sample size, you know, is going to be rather large. You know, 30 people. It's a big difference. Now, we're talking about the internet. We're talking about websites. And we're talking about billions of websites that have, and Google's utilizing hundreds and hundreds of different factors to rank these websites and rank these web properties. So to do a good study right off the bat, I want to establish that sample size is extremely important. So I'm covering up my microphone here. Apologize for anybody that was listening in. So sample size is extremely important. And in this study that I'm going to talk about, I'm kind of surprised that it's published on Search Engine Land, because their sample size was only looking at 3 different websites over a 4-month period. And what they tested is content that was shared within the Google Plus network to see if there was any results. Well, number one, we understand that if we started to optimize today, that we've got to maintain at least a 6-month time period before we start to see positive fruitions of our results. Doesn't mean you're not going to get results after 30 days or even 2 weeks. But you've got to have sample a long amount of time. They haven't taken that amount of time. The second thing is that their sample size is way too small. We can't indicate or we can't identify specific industries. There's a lot of different factors. But looking at the data that they did come out, that they were able to pull out, they did establish, another thing I wanted to point out with the study as well was the concept of correlation study. This kind of irked me, because identifying a correlation study is isolating factors, and they haven't had the opportunity to properly isolate these factors, where they could say, we make one change here, and over a period of time the correlating results is this, this, and this. And so this is not a correlation study. This was, let's go out and do a few things and just see the results and see what happens. Meanwhile, Google in that 4 months is doing a variety of different updates. And the social side, the social aspect of it, there could be a lot of factors that we can dig into, such as how interactive those social properties are. In other words, how many people are actually communicating with them? Or are they just going posting stuff? Do they actually have followers that are actually engaging with this content? So the bottom line is they tested social content and did not see any impact in results. One thing that they did mention is that it's kind of like a cause and effect. Okay, you go ahead, you scratch yourself, and you get a cut on your arm, and you bleed from it. Okay, you get a result. Well, what happens if that cut gets infected now? You get a very different result. Well, 2 things have to happen to get that very different result: a cut and an infection. The infection doesn't happen without the cut, but the cut itself won't do it. So that's kind of what they are saying here, is that you know, they particularly, you know, social aspects, you can go ahead and make changes on social things, but making these changes in itself is not going to get the result that you're ultimately looking for. You've got to have other complementing facts to it. So when you're creating content in the social networks and you go and you post it, what good is that? Well, what happens if that content turns around and actually gets shared? And then they measure that content that is shared throughout the social networks. So if I go and create a fantastic infographic and I put it on my blog, and I only share it through social sites, and I don't fire any more links at it at all, and that content goes viral, my question is that blog post going to rank? Darn tootin' it's going to rank. I haven't done the study for it specifically per se, and that's what this study has debunked. You take that infographic, and if it goes viral, of course Google wants to send people to your site. Of course they are looking at that type of stuff. And so make sure that your websites have these social plugins. in them. All right. Well, that comes to the conclusion of this week's update. I kind of blew by the tip for customer segmentation, and I want to talk about that tip. Then I'm going to take a short break and then come back and talk about a tip for a local internet marketing agency. Well, Marketing 101 talks about a term of segmenting your audience, or customer segmentation. It blows me away to this day. You know, I started in SEO in 2005, and I got good at it by 2006. In 2007, people were asking me for help to teach them how to do it and whatnot. But it wasn't until 08 or 09 that the light bulb actually went on for me, and I realized that everything that I was doing with SEO was just marketing. And so when I started to take a different approach of SEO and realize that I just got to be a decent marketer, and if we create content that is going to be consumed by an audience, we're going to get exposure on the internet, and we're going to get rankings. Well, SEO, search engine optimization, by definition could have the exact same definition that the American Marketing Association says marketing is all about. Go and check it out. Go do a search right now for the American Marketing Association. It's going to tell you something along the lines that you're going to create You're going to create content for an audience. Audience, there you go. Hybrid word. Content for an audience. Audience. Well, you're going to create content for an audience, whether it be prospects or clients at large or an industry at large, and distribute that content to an area where that audience is going to reside or consume that information and have value from it. Okay, so that's SEO. Well, if SEO is marketing and marketing is SEO, then the very first steps of SEO, before doing, the infamous keyword research, should be segmenting your audience. If SEO is all about creating content for an audience and distributing that content, then why the hell are you not understanding your audience? So why isn't customer segmentation a big glaring word in search engine optimization, SEO, local SEO? Why aren't people talking about that? I mean, you could take Walmart and Target and profile their customers differently. You can take a restaurant that serves hamburgers, McDonald's, and the one up the street, and they're going to have very, very different customers, because these hamburgers are 3 times price difference. Different audiences for the same product. So how can a chiropractor create the same content as another chiropractor? Because some chiropractors work with back pain patients, others work for wellness. 2 very different perspectives. 2 very different professions, for that matter. So why are you going to create content for a back pain chiropractor the same way that you're going to do for a wellness? Okay? What about local areas? You know, I've lived in the United States since 2005. Lived in Canada for a while. I also lived in South Korea. One thing I learned about traveling is culture. It's one thing that Americans, in my opinion, don't understand when they say, well, we can travel around our country, we got everything. No, you don't. The one thing you have about traveling is learning about other cultures. And that's the one thing you get to take with you and take home with you. When I was out in the Asian culture, there was a lot of things that they did that were very weird. But there's a few things that I took home with me and adopted into my lifestyle to make me a little bit happier. So geography plays a big part in a particular audience. And the geography, whether it be the geography of one side of town to the other side of town, or one part of the country to the other part of the country, also plays an impact in understanding your customer segment. Okay? Chiropractors, again, I'll use the same example, or dentists. Doesn't matter. Some are pediatric, some are going after families, some are family oriented, some are going after the single working individual. So any business wants to focus on a small handful of different customer segments, 3 to 5 segments. Anything more than that, your marketing message is going to get diverted. Plain and simple. Doesn't mean it can't be done. So there's steps involved in segmenting your audience, and basically you want to get them segmented into different groups that you can create what are called profile traits for each of those different segments. You may label each segment: the newcomers, the newbies, the veterans. It doesn't matter what you label them. But the more that you can learn about each of these groups and use adjectives for each group, and have a list of these adjectives, along with local jargon and industry jargon, dentist, dentistry, teeth whitening, all of that wonderful stuff, you now have all the appropriate keywords to effectively create the appropriate content that's going to speak to the right audience and get distributed. And when you're speaking specifically to an audience, that's the type of content that's ultimately going to get shared and further exposed on the internet. So learn about customer segmentation. Local Marketing Source has just launched a free marketing course. We've got a video in there on customer segmentation. If you're an LMS student, get into the portal, go and watch that customer segmentation video. It's available. The video is also available on the Local Marketing Source YouTube channel. At the end of this video, just go ahead and you can subscribe to that channel. All right, I'm going to take a few moments and I'll be right back, and we'll talk about a tip for a local internet marketing agency. Hey, well, thanks for watching the Local Marketing Industry Update. We've got these things coming out every single week, so if you liked with what you heard, just click the button right above me right here to subscribe to our channel. If you'd like to get a little bit more, right over here, go check out localmarketingsource.com. We've got free reports that you can grab. You can even register for a free marketing course to get in and see the portal. Or just go ahead and follow us on some of the social channels. We'll be around. Until next time.